In 2008, America said it was done falling behind. A planned 220-mile-per-hour train that would connect San Francisco and Los Angeles faster than a plane. It was meant to mark a new age of clean, modern travel. 15 years later, that promise still lied half-buried in California's dirt. And still, the tracks are unfinished, the budget has exploded, and the world is asking how the richest nation on Earth managed to derail its own future. The California High-Speed Rail was meant to prove that the United States could still build something grand. Voters approved nearly $10 billion in bonds through Proposition 1A to start construction. The plan called for 500 miles of new electrified track, later expanding to 800 miles statewide. It would connect the state's largest cities and become the backbone of a clean, fast, and modern transportation network. Supporters called it a once-in-a-generation investment. It would cut emissions, ease traffic, and reshape how 40 million people move. But what began as an inspiring plan soon turned into a fight over time, money, and politics. The future arrived slower than promised. Years of land disputes, environmental reviews, and legal battles buried the schedule under paperwork. While Europe and Asia laid new track by the thousands of miles, California's project moved forward inch by inch. Yet this is not a story about laziness or incompetence. It's about how difficult it has become to build anything large in the modern United States. Every bridge, every tunnel, every mile of rail required multiple agencies, environmental permits, and public hearings. Each step brought more studies, reports, and revisions. Every small change meant a new delay. What began as a project to unite a state became a 20-year struggle between engineers, politicians, and public opinion. Billions of dollars were spent before a single rail was laid. And still, the vision endured. In the flat farmland of California's Central Valley, construction finally began. It was the perfect test ground. Wide open space, fewer urban conflicts, and room to build big. Miles of viaducts now rise above the fields, their pillars stretching toward the sky. They stand as monuments to progress, and reminders of everything that went wrong. So how did a country once known for building the Hoover Dam, the Golden Gate Bridge, and the interstate highway system end up with its first bullet train stuck in dirt? Why can China build 10,000 miles of high-speed rail while America struggles to finish one? The answer lies in a combination of vision, bureaucracy, and political tug-of-war. To understand it, we need to go back to where it started, the moment when California tried to make history. In 2008, when Proposition 1A appeared on the ballot, it promised a new era of transportation. The plan was to connect San Francisco and Los Angeles with a line capable of running at speeds never before seen in the United States. It would be electric, safe, and entirely grade-separated, with no crossings or shared tracks. The public voted yes, giving the project its green light. At first, optimism was high. The newly created California High-Speed Rail Authority quickly moved forward. Designs were drafted. Federal grants were secured. Contractors were chosen. Billions in stimulus funding arrived from Washington under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. It seemed like the project was unstoppable. The Central Valley became the first target for construction. Engineers called it the backbone of the system. It stretched from Madera to Kern County, about 119 miles of track. The valley's flat geography made it cheaper to build compared to the dense urban centers of Los Angeles or San Francisco. This segment would set the foundation for everything to come. By 2013, major contracts were signed. Companies like Tudor Perini, Dragados, and Flatiron moved in with heavy equipment. Workers began driving piles, pouring concrete, and lifting beams. The Fresno River Viaduct became the first major structure, a 1,600-foot bridge designed to carry high-speed trains over a busy highway and river. From above, it looked like progress. But underneath, small issues began to snowball. Buying land turned out to be far more complicated than expected. Thousands of parcels were owned by private farmers, local businesses, and families. Negotiations dragged on for years. Some owners refused to sell, forcing the state to seize property through eminent domain. Others demanded compensation for lost access roads, crops, or buildings. Each dispute delayed construction. At the same time, engineers had to revise early designs to meet California's strict environmental and earthquake standards. The state's geography is complex, filled with wetlands, farmlands, and fault lines. Every new discovery meant another redesign. Relocating utilities like water lines, pipelines, and power cables caused even more delays. Some were moved twice after new adjustments were made. Each change cost money. The original price tag of $33 billion soon jumped to 50, then 70, and eventually passed 90 billion. Critics accused the authority of wasting money and overpromising results. Others said the real issue was America's endless approval system, where every problem required another round of paperwork instead of quick action. Still, work continued. By 2025, more than half of all major structures were complete, and 99% of the needed land had been acquired. The sight of long bridges rising across the Central Valley proved that something real was finally happening. Yet trains were still years away. Supporters called it progress. Opponents called it failure. But everyone agreed on one thing. The project had turned into a reflection of the country itself. The same nation that once built the Transcontinental Railroad in 6 years had spent nearly 2 decades just getting out of the ground. By the start of 2025, the California High-Speed Rail had become both an engineering story and a political one. On construction sites, progress was visible. On paper, the numbers told a different story. The authority reported more than 2,000 parcels of land delivered, 92 major structures in various stages of completion, over 60 miles of guideway finished. In total, millions of cubic yards of concrete had been poured. The Hanford Viaduct, one of the largest structures, stretched more than 6,000 feet and required almost 1,000 precast girders. It was designed to carry trains at full speed through the Central Valley, built to withstand earthquakes and floods alike. It became a symbol of what California could achieve when it kept politics out of the way. But politics never stayed out for long. The flow of federal funding shifted every few years. During the Obama administration, the project received strong support and billions in grants. Under President Trump, the funding was revoked, with officials calling the project a disaster. California sued and eventually won the money back after President Biden took office. In 2023, a new boost arrived, $3 billion in federal grants to buy train sets, build maintenance facilities, and finish key sections of the line. For a moment, the project looked alive again. Then came 2025. A new administration in Washington announced its intent to pull more than $4 billion in federal funds, citing missed milestones. California leaders were blindsided. The state had already spent much of the money on active construction. Without it, they warned, the project would grind to a halt, leaving behind half-finished bridges and abandoned equipment. Governor Gavin Newsom called the move political revenge. State lawyers began preparing lawsuits, accusing the federal government of breaking its commitments. While the two sides traded letters, thousands of workers kept showing up. Concrete had to be poured. Cranes had to stay running. The work could not stop, even if the funding did. The fight over money overshadowed the real engineering work. Behind the scenes, California's engineers were designing some of the toughest parts of the entire system. The Pacheco Pass Tunnel, between Merced and San Jose, would stretch around 13 miles through faulted rock and heavy groundwater. When finished, it would be the longest rail tunnel in North America. Boring machines would grind through unstable terrain where groundwater pressure and seismic activity made construction risky and slow. It was one of the most expensive and challenging features of the entire project. Farther south, the route through the Tehachapi and San Gabriel Mountains involved smaller tunnels and tall viaducts connecting Bakersfield to Palmdale and Burbank. These links were critical for the eventual connection into Los Angeles. In June 2024, environmental clearance for Palmdale to Burbank was approved, removing one of the final roadblocks. Meanwhile, Los Angeles had its own major upgrade underway. The Link US project at Union Station would transform the city's rail terminal from a dead end into a through station, allowing high-speed trains to enter and exit without reversing. In October 2025, the Metro Board approved the final plan, with groundbreaking expected in spring 2026. By then, California's high-speed rail had created more than 12,000 jobs. New apprenticeship programs taught local workers how to weld, operate cranes, and handle complex infrastructure systems. The project became one of the largest employers in the Central Valley, pumping billions into the local economy. But even that success came at a price. The total cost of Phase 1, from San Francisco to Los Angeles, had climbed between $88 and $128 billion. Inflation in concrete and steel, new safety systems, and modern design standards kept pushing numbers higher. Critics called it a financial black hole. Supporters argued it was a necessary investment in the state's future. For residents near the tracks, the impact was personal. Some had lost farmland to the right-of-way. Others had gained new work on the project. In towns like Fresno and Hanford, the debate split families and neighborhoods. To some, it was the future. To others, it was just an expensive dream. By mid-2025, California's high-speed rail faced its biggest test yet. The Federal Railroad Administration sent notice that it planned to end several funding agreements, claiming the state had missed milestones and defaulted on obligations. The decision threatened to pull more than $4 billion from the project, right as the major structures neared completion. California leaders called the move political and filed legal challenges within days. They argued that the project had already achieved measurable progress. 99% of all land was secured, and the largest viaducts were nearly done. Cutting the money now, they warned, would leave half-built bridges standing over empty fields. Behind the headlines, the stakes were much larger than one state's construction project. If California lost the funding, other states considering high-speed rail would likely abandon their plans too. It would send a signal that even America's wealthiest and most ambitious state could not finish a modern train line without collapsing under its own bureaucracy. Supporters feared it would kill national momentum for cleaner, faster transport for decades. Federal officials countered that the project's constant schedule changes had eroded trust. Deadlines once set for the early 2020s had slipped a full decade. Washington wanted proof that California could stay on budget before releasing any more money. But the state argued that these demands ignored the realities of building through one of the most heavily regulated regions in the world. Every design change required environmental reviews, and every mile of track crossed dozens of separate jurisdictions. While the legal fight grew, workers kept building. The Hanford Viaduct stretched more than 6,000 feet across farmland, built from nearly 1,000 girders and hundreds of columns. It had become the symbol of both progress and uncertainty, towering above the Central Valley like a monument to unfinished ambition. Local residents passed it every day, watching as sections slowly connected, proof that the dream was real even if the politics were not. The 2025 project report set a clear goal: finish the Central Valley section by 2026 and launch the first 171-mile route between Merced and Bakersfield by 2032. That short segment would serve as proof that high-speed trains could work in the United States, showing that electric rail could cut travel time, reduce emissions, and attract riders away from cars and short flights. Still, politics overshadowed engineering. The total cost for Phase 1, linking San Francisco and Los Angeles, had reached up to $128 billion. Critics called it wasteful. Supporters said it was the price of progress in a system that made building harder every year. Many pointed out that even with its high cost, it would still be cheaper than expanding airports and freeways to handle the same number of travelers. For people in the Central Valley, the project had already changed daily life. It created more than 12,000 jobs, from welders to crane operators, and supported hundreds of local suppliers. Apprenticeships trained a new workforce that might never have existed without the project. Entire towns saw new businesses open to serve workers, proving that the train was already reshaping the region's economy long before the first passenger boarded. Beyond economics, there was the question of purpose. The finished system would run entirely on renewable power, remove highway traffic, and cut emissions by millions of tons each year. It was meant to show that America could still build clean, fast public transport. It was also a statement of belief that the country could still take on hard projects and finish them, even if the road there was long and messy. By the end of 2025, the work was still alive. Crews poured concrete and set beams, even as funding remained uncertain. Each completed structure stood as proof of persistence. Whether the project reached the finish line depended on one thing no engineer could control: political will. California's high-speed rail is no longer just a transport project. It is a test of national character. The bridges are built, the routes are drawn, and the workers are ready. The only question left is whether America still has the resolve to finish what it started.